works for you. Okay? But if it doesn't work for you, don't think that you have to be digitized, right? What you have to digitize is your referencing. You have to use a word processor. You have to digitize your referencing in your word processor. Don't do that old style with the cards. You know, do it like use all that technology. But for just notating and that, I think this is great. And you know, Terry has all his referencing and quotes. He uses some online databases as well that are cross-platform and stuff. You should take a look at that video because he references like 30 different types of software that you could use. Okay. We all feel different going into a doctoral program, but I always tell the students, you need to feel that you're already a doctor. This is what Dr. York and I always tell our martial arts students when they're going into their black belt exam. Make sure your mindset is already there when you walk in. So when you walk in and you're ready, right? By the time you finish you get into your program, definitely by your defense, you should already be convinced in your own mind that you know your stuff so well and have done so well. There's no question about getting to the defense interview. Right? That's where you want to be, okay? But already just coming into the program, you all have that strong desire to be in the program, right? That's why you're here, right? So have a little bit of that ego that says, I'm already, in your own mind, I'm already a doctor. I just have to prove it to us, right? So you just have to prove it to a committee, and then you're off, right? So it's a little bit of maybe psychological trickery for yourself, but I think it's important to be able to visualize yourself as already being there. In ski jumping, right? In ski jumping, the skiers, they go through it in their brains. They see themselves as actually doing the jump. And evidently, psychologically, it's the same. The body reacts identically as actually doing it, right? So that's an example of using your own mindset to already achieve. Some things about research, and I've got more developed slide on this later on, so I'll go through it quickly. Has to hold your interest, has to be doable, and we'll talk about doability. It's got to be challenging. You need to enjoy the topic. You have to have knowledge, some knowledge in the area, especially when you start. And you have to have positive and disciplined spirit, which is what we're talking about. We break these things into external and internal factors, right? So try to identify what the external and internal factors are that are motivating you to do your doctoral studies. Now, researchers face many challenges, as I said. Some people get divorced, some people get ill, right? Some of the main things, budgeting issues, death of somebody in the family or a significant other. You change your profession, it's 3 years. The chances that someone's going to change jobs or get put onto a new department like Dickinson or change employers completely or be out of work for a while. These are all the regular challenges that are being faced by doctoral students, and you will face many of these. So you have to be prepared that this stuff is going to happen, but you have to be prepared to know that the doctoral studies will continue no matter what. You're committed to them. All this other stuff is regular life stuff that's going to happen whether you're in a doctoral program or not. So don't use that as an excuse. Again, my teacher in martial arts used to say, when you're looking for an excuse, any excuse will do, right? So don't get into the habit of making excuses for yourself while in the program as to doing or not doing work. Just plow through your stuff, because all this stuff is going to happen whether or not you're in the program, right? Just be prepared for them. The key challenge is to understand the difference in doctoral studies and to stay motivated through it. Now this is a little slide I like to show where we talk about, up here at high school going through associate, bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, on postdoctorate, what I call directed learning and autonomous learning. Directed learning, when you're at undergrad or bachelor's level, this is the teacher is giving you most of the material. The amount of material you're going out and you're learning on your own is quite small, right? You're being spoon-fed everything, right? When you get to master's, it's usually about 50-50 in my view. Just somewhere getting up to 50-50 here. Maybe a little bit less, and depending on the school. Right? You're learning how to go out there and read articles and chase down some materials and stuff. But when you get to doctorate and postdoctorate, it's almost 100% autonomous learning, right? I mean, you might have some people for oversight on you. Ultimately, it gets to 100% autonomous. You're out there, you're doing it. There's nobody teaching you. You're learning it. You're learning this, right? And what I have here is what I call the critical reasoning gap, right? Is that this autonomous learning area, right, that you get into when you get into doctoral studies, one of the misconceptions of doctoral studies is students think, I have a supervisor, therefore the supervisor is going to teach me what I need to know in my doctoral study, right? Supervisor doesn't teach you like your professors did at a master's level and particularly at a bachelor's level. The supervisor just guides you, right? You're the one teaching yourself. You're the one who becomes the expert. You go out and find what are the articles that are important for your domain. The supervisor doesn't tell you, oh, you're studying corporate, like for instance, if somebody was studying corporate social responsibility underneath me, right? I don't give them a reading list and say, go read these authors and then write up your dissertation, right? They have to go out and find authors that are important and track down the seminal authors, the important authors, for what they are interested in. Because their interest in corporate social responsibility is different than mine, right? Now, I might say to them, here's 5 key authors, make sure you read these guys, or these ladies, right? But other than that, go do your literature review. Go find out who are the important researchers, okay? That's the responsibility of the student, not the supervisor, okay? And that's what I call this whole autonomous area, that gap, because a lot of students don't understand this fact. So they have a misunderstanding of this big critical gap there. And if you look at it, you know, on the graph, you're doing 3 years, you're doing a 3-year period, right, with the whole thing being autonomous learning, right? So within the doctoral study, the amount of autonomous learning that you're doing in your doctoral study far outweighs even all the other learning that you've done beforehand, right? So it is quite a gear shift, if you want to call it that, from when you go from master's into doctorate, okay? It's an entirely different type of study, right? Personal study, that is, when you're in the program. There's nobody directing you, you're directing yourself. You're getting advice, you're getting some supervision you're getting advice from the administration, supervision from your supervisor. But other than that, it's you out there tracing down or tracking down materials and teaching yourself what you should be learning in that domain. So it's a bit of meta learning, right? That make sense to everybody? Frederick Herzberg here taught us that there's two types of factors for motivation, right? Called the dual structure theory. And you probably, if you've been through undergrad in business or an MBA, you've probably covered this. Hygiene factors and motivators. Hygiene factors, contrary to what a lot of people understand by this theory, they think hygiene factors are not motivators. They actually are motivators, okay? The same as the ones in the motivation category here. But the difference is these, if you want to call them true motivators, lead to satisfaction. These don't necessarily lead to satisfaction, but if you don't have them, you'll have increased dissatisfaction, okay? So it's a little bit, in my eyes, like water, right? If you have enough water to drink, you're pretty satisfied, right? If I give you a 5-liter thing of water, you're pretty satisfied. You got a lot of water for the next couple of weeks, right? If I give you a pool of water, huge amount of water, it doesn't really increase your satisfaction so much, right? You can only drink so much water and use so much water, right? But if I take away the water, all of a sudden within a day or two, you're going to be experiencing some serious dissatisfaction that you don't have any water, right? So the hygiene factors are very similar, right? So pay, benefits, status, job, company policy, relationships, supervision, these are things that he identified as what he called hygiene factors, and they lead to, the absence of which lead to dissatisfaction. Leading to satisfaction is achievement, recognition, The work itself, responsibility, growth. So you've probably seen this in some of the HR courses and such, right? So use this to get to what are your real motivations for the program and zero in on them. Like we talk about, some people earlier were mentioning their children. They're doing it as well to, teach their children about continual learning and to be able to, that the children could be proud of them. So this is achievement and recognition, right? So valid reasons for doing the doctoral program, right? If you're doing it only because you say, well, I want to get a better job, right? Okay, that might last for a little while, but when that reasoning gets tired and you're in the middle of the dissertation and there's tons of work to do, that might not encourage you very much because you might just say, you know what, I don't need that promotion after all. It was only another 15%. I could live without it, right? So zero in on those things that are the true motivators. Why do you really want to do it? Like Anastasia said, since she was a young girl, she's wanted to be an academic. She wanted to be in research and do this stuff, right? So it's something that's held tight for a long time, So that type of motivation is going to stick with her through the whole program. Okay. Douglas McGregor, who also for a while worked with the U.S. military, I found out from reading, but he taught us that there's two theories called X and Y, right? And the easy way to remember it is X between two people is like pushing two people away, and Y is like a big hug, okay? And theory X is very authoritative, repressive, tight control, where theory Y is liberating and developmental. Now what I do is I make a comparison here. I say it can be argued that there are parallels between theory X and theory Y to directed and autonomous learning. This is just me making this parallel. So it's saying that when you're in your undergrad and into your master's degree, it's controlled, right? It's directed learning. There's tight control on you as a student. It's theory X, right? Theory X doesn't let you grow very much, okay? Theory Y, autonomous learning, right? It's open. You're responsible for it, right? It's liberating. It's enabling. It's empowering, right? So have that in your mind that when you're doing your studies, if you get frustrated, because sometimes in doctoral studies the frustration is, I wish I had more direction, right? Well, the opposite of that is it's not necessarily a lack of direction as much as it is the freedom to take your studies where you can take them. That's a liberating thing. With freedom comes responsibility, right? And the responsibility for you to take that as a serious endeavor and run with it, right? So there's a comparison there that can be made that I think is important. And of course, when we were going through some of the introductions and people saying, well, I'm also doing the program for self-actualization reasons, right? This is very important for a lot of us as mature students because we don't necessarily need to do a doctorate after having a 25-year career in business. We're already a success in business. The doctorate's not necessarily going to bring more money in the door, right? You might already be very respected as a captain of industry within your community or in your church and everywhere else. So why are you really doing it? Well, I'm doing it for me. I always wanted to do it. I'm doing it for a sense of accomplishment. I'm doing it for other reasons, right? So these are self-actualization reasons. So morality, creativity, spontaneity. The creativity of going through the doctoral program, my thesis, right? So this wouldn't have existed without going through this is a work of art, right? Thank you. No, but everybody's thesis is their work of art, right? Some of it's technical, but most of it is the art of management, right? And then this, as I mentioned, you can be proud of yourself when this becomes this, right? And it's listed on Amazon, and you have the book right there, and you're happy, and hey, you know what? don't expect your brothers and sisters to read your thesis, right? They're going to say, oh, congratulations, wow, that looks really great. You know, you say, well, you know, did you see what I said on page 15? It's really great. Yeah, hey, I think Mom's calling us for dinner. Hey, come on. You know, don't expect people, don't expect your loved ones, okay, to get into this as much as you will, right? And that's why things have to be coming from an internal standpoint, right? Because sometimes the people closest to you, if you want to pass them around, sometimes the people closest to you who you're expecting to get the most support from are going to not give you the most support. So be ready for that, okay? And in fact, they might even get frustrated because, are you married, Rita? Do you have a boyfriend, husband, or significant other? Your significant other gets angry at the fact that on the weekends all the time Rita is doing her thesis work, right? So there starts to be some jealousy there, right? And that's where, well, you have to open up the lines of communication and explain why it's so important to you and things like that. But you have to remain a little bit steadfast on that, and why is it important to you, right? But sometimes that's where the conflict comes, right? The good thing about a dissertation or a doctoral program is you can tell people, like, look, this will not go on forever. It's going to come to an end after a certain amount of time, right? But that's one issue, too, that sometimes is very difficult for people in the doctoral program because it is a long haul, right? And the people closest to you get tired of it faster than you do because you're interested in it and it's something you're producing, something creative, okay? But just keep that in mind. You need to get a buddy, right? You need to have a study mate, a study buddy. A study buddy, that even rhymes. So at least one, please, everybody, please hook up with one other person in the program and make a covenant with one another. I'm using religious overtones now. Make a covenant with one another that you will...
Excuse me. What means buddy?
Buddy,
Yeah.
a pal, a mate.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is that in the roof?
Yeah. A buddy is a plutonic relationship. So, hook up with somebody in the program that you guys are calling each other, and they don't have to be next door to you, right? Like, look at, Dr. Birdsell and myself. She was in the Netherlands, I was in Canada, right? But Skype is a wonderful thing, right? And they didn't pay me to put that announcement in my message, but Skype's a wonderful thing, and there's some other ways of communicating with just basic chat and emails. It's like somebody's next door. Okay, so find somebody with general interest like yourself, and it doesn't have to be one-on-one. It could be a group as well. This is one thing in the future that maybe I can interject. I really want to get much more formalized in the school is these groups. So now we have a lot of students from the same areas now. And there's nothing stopping you guys from getting on the phone or getting on the Skype to have a powwow, as we say back home, right? Or saying if everybody's in the same city or close by, you don't have to do it every week, but you say, you know what? Every 3 months, either on a Saturday or Sunday, people are going to travel in and we're going to have a lunch together and everybody's going to stand face to face with one another and we're going to discuss our stuff, support, right? You can't do that all the time, but you can do it at some times. And not all the time will everybody be available, but most of the time, most of the people will be available. So, with the number of students we have now, there's opportunity for that to happen. Certainly can happen on the digital side, right? Most definitely. So if you feel yourselves as being somebody who would like to take on a role of coordinating for their area, please step forward to me. This is something I'd like to actually be able to identify people to say, if you're in this region, contact Clément because Clément is going to be the one who's going to organize and keep that group cohesive amongst other people. It could be 3 people, it could be 10 people, it doesn't matter, right? I create a little, the Dutch call it a kring, a ring. Okay?
There is something available for you to have more than 2 people Skyping, Google Hangout. Some of you may be familiar with it. Okay. And as long as you can do a
Man, you're more
Skype.
hip than me, I've never heard of it.
Scott has, when we
Please.
tried it,
Yes.
Scott does also work with groups as well.
Thank you. So you can do, yeah, you can do that. And I can't emphasize enough the power of the group. Here's what happened to me in my MBA group. How are you doing? You know, Rita would say, I just added 5 more pages to chapter 2. And Clement would say, yeah, I've made progress, I'm into chapter 3 already. You know, there's a little bit of healthy competitiveness, and I don't want to be left behind. As compared to, I'm making no progress, it must be me. Sooner or later, that the group dynamic is very, very helpful. Or, how did you get that? How did you do that? Well, I'll email it to you right now. When I look at some of the documents coming around, there would be some questions that I would have, and I know that Dr. Henderson's going to be working on a little bit more formalized template form that'll help you. But in the meantime, don't let that stop you, because it's easier to put it into a template or your final document, or creating your reference pages as you're moving along right now, than to put it off. And people can help one another in that regard. So, reinforcing exactly what you're talking about.
And you know, there's some therapeutic benefits to helping people, isn't there? Right? And helping your fellow classmates. And sometimes you just sit and you say, I just want to, you know, some people come in the program and say, no, I like this structure because I just want to be off and doing my own thing. Next thing you know, they're the ones doing the most interaction with everybody, right? Because you get back, you know, again, I'll get a little bit theological on you. It's good to give, right? And that's one thing we learn, particularly as children, is how, you know, to give to others. But it's as important to understand or to know how to receive, right? And so as you give to your fellow students, your support, your energy, your understanding, you also have to know how to get that back, right? And that's going to help you a great deal in your doctoral program, is being able to receive support from your fellow students and receive some criticism. And take the criticism, as we were talking earlier, take the criticism as beneficial and supportive. And sometimes if it's harsh, they're really, really, am I really not on the mark here? You know, so what you'll find is through time, you'll have those particular individuals that you really start to trust a lot from your program. And they'll be able to tell you anything. You know, when you send them 10 pages for them to read, right? And say, hey, I just wrote 10 pages, but I'd really like you to read it, review it for me, and give me your opinion. When they turn around and say, I don't know what you were smoking that night, but you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And you're like, really? I got to rewrite it all? You know, no. Because, you know, when you're colleagues, right, and you can say things that a supervisor might not necessarily say, right? And quite frankly, there's another part of the coin, which is another side of the coin, which is you don't always want to show everything to your supervisor, right? I mean, do you really want to show, like, think of it in your business life when you're on a project that they've given you a special project. Do you want to show your boss your entire work in process, right? No, because I know I make a lot of mistakes during the day that I end up correcting later on, right? I want to show my finished work, or my penultimate as second to last work, right? The stuff that's pretty good, you know? I want to get his feedback on the stuff that's pretty good. I don't want to get his feedback on stuff that I just wrote last night, right? But hey, my buddy, you know, Dr. York, I could throw him stuff and say, hey, Don, can you read this for me and let me know what you think about it? Oh, that idea was good. That idea has been said a million times before. This one's good, right? You need that. You know, that's a really important, critical aspect of the program. Again, like I said, nobody goes through nobody's an island Some of us are more independent than other people, that's fine. Some of us are more dependent, which is fine too, you know. You gotta carry your own weight in the program, but try to be, you know, as supportive as you can be of your other students, and as well, try to accept their support as much as possible, okay? Sorry, this will click through again. That's when I was learning how to use the presentation software. Flipping arrows
I
around.
told him not to do that.
Yeah. With my undergraduate students in finance, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. It was in my CSR presentation. I might still have it in there. I have this block that comes up and then it lights on fire. I thought that was pretty cool. But anyways. So what you need in your toolbox, think of it that way, like a carpenter has a toolbox, he's got certain tools, right, that he uses. Yes.
So are we gonna have the slides after?
Are you gonna have an exam on this? You will be quizzed on this. Yeah, they're already loaded on the Moodle, actually. So all of you have been registered into Symposium September 2013 Moodle group. And the slides are there, okay, so you can pull them down. Yeah. So, you know, as I was saying, you need confidence, determination, resilience, patience, all these major things. And you need to support one another, right? What have I been saying all day long, right? Many intelligent people do not make it. And why? Because a lot of intelligent, or overly intelligent, let's say, a couple of things happen with overly intelligent people. One is the ego factor is too big. The other thing is perfectionists, right? Now, the Zen Buddhists teach us that it is a quest for perfection. It's not to become perfect, right? So we want our thesis to be as perfect as possible, but it's not going to be a perfect thesis, right? So don't try and make it a perfect thesis. Try and make it your best thesis, right? So if you're the type of person that can get detracted or derailed because of this exactitude, right, you got to be very careful, okay? So that happens sometimes with high achievers as well. But intelligence is just one of the critical factors, you know. You need to cultivate all these other things. Gratitude, understanding of the self, right? Time management. Right? Time management, that's a skill, it's not just a characteristic, right? So if you have crappy time management skills, you know what, go on the web, look up time management course, take a 3-week course on time management, personal time management stuff. Learn how to get that down. Some of us learn it the hard way. Some of us are just good at it, right? And some of us are bad at it, right? If it's something that's bad, you have to get it. You have to be able to be a good manager of your time when you're going through the doctoral process, okay?
Can I just add something?
Sure.
It's maybe obvious to a lot of you, but my experience was that if you haven't got at least a couple of hours to devote to don't bother studying. That may mean chasing your family out of the house or whatever. I don't know.
So
But
meaning
you'll
at
know.
each sitting.
Yeah, at each sitting, and picking it up, doing half an hour, putting it down, picking it up again, you don't make any progress at all. Because by the time you've got your mind back into the track, the half hour's over. So you need blocks of time without interruption. And decide also, I think, according to your own personal body routine, when is the best time of day, when your mind is most clear and in the right state to do this type of work. For me, it's the mornings, I know. Some of you may be like it night.
Yeah, and the other thing that I tell people too is borrowing some language from some other disciplines, you know, sacred space. Again, I'm getting theological on people, but sacred space, right? Where do you write up your thesis? Where do you work, right? So some people are just like, I work anywhere I want. I work on the bus, I work here, I work there. Well, you know, I always challenge them to say, you know what, you should find a space which is your space where you work on your thesis. And that could be a separate space other, like if you have a home office, where you do all your bills and you do everything else, and you do some professional work there that you bring home with, don't use that space for your dissertation, right? Because the physical act of sitting in another space will change your mental attitude that now you're doing your dissertation, right? It's like putting on your suit when you go to work in the morning. I'm pointing at you because you got a beautiful suit on. I already mentioned it was. Very nice. And, but putting on your suit and tie changes your mentality, right? And so that's just one example, but I'm a real believer in separate spaces or sacred spaces that are dedicated to one task, so that when you're sitting there and you're doing it, that's the space, you're in your dissertation space, you're smiling. Does that mean something?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's very correct. You see, even in a chair, the chair you sit in when you're doing your reading is very important.
Yeah.
You change the chair, the perception or the thinking will be different.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
If I could add one thing, put yourself in the mindset that writing the dissertation, the thesis, is a part-time job. If you're working at a part-time job, you are to be there from this time to this time. And I chose a library, public library, to go to a specific chair in a specific area. In fact, when I was finished with mine, I came back to the library and I said, you may have wondered why I was always here. Thank you for helping me get my doctorate degree. But if you do that, you're always looking, that's the place I'm going to, that's the sacred space or the sanctum, whatever you call it, but it's a part-time job. I must report there. I'm at work now. And dear, honey, you know I have to go there, nothing personal, you're supporting me, I'm off. And it could be, here's my hours this week, and coordinate. If you do that, trust me, you'll feel productive at the end. Even if you've had a writer's block day or it didn't quite work out, it won't matter. You're making progress. You have to be that disciplined to do it. Because there's no Dr. Henderson saying, did you go to class today? Did you write 16 paragraphs or so on and so forth? It's all on you.
The other thing that I have up here, which you might have been wondering, was the 7 times fall down thing, right? This resilience, and we borrow this from the Japanese. They're saying it's 7 times fall down, 8 times get up, right? And we use it in judo studies, because judo, you're being thrown, right? And as we say in karate with kicking and punching, it's better to give than receive, right? Because you'd rather kick and punch than you kick and get punched. In judo, we say 7 times fall down, 8 times get up, which just means you're going to get thrown. That's what judo's all about, There's 2 players. One is the uki, he gets thrown, boom, and he's down on the ground. What do you do now? You got to get up again. But with the intention that you're going to get thrown again. Boom. So you know what's going to happen? You're going to get up, and your dissertation is going to throw you down on the ground again, right? Because you're going to get to a block, right? You're going to get somewhere where you're like, I don't know what to write next, or I got to think it a different way, or what have you. What do? Do you give up, or do you get up?
Yeah, and just probably it's the proper place. Recently I read a quote. Unfortunately, I don't remember who wrote it, but it says that I didn't fail 5,000 times. I found just 5,000 times it doesn't work. So this is about motivation, about that you fall down, you have to get up and try to find other solution, other way to fight and get you a deserved position. So.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the examples that's similar to that's given all the time is Edison with the light bulb that he tried 10,000 times before he was able to get the incandescent light bulb, thank God, or we wouldn't have this presentation. Or it would be very analog.